Could you please
I
check
think
if we are live now?
um, yes, we are live. Please go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So hey folks, good evening to all of you. My name is Karan. I welcome you all to the inaugural episode, which is episode 1 of Internship Stories brought to you by creators of products. Talking about creators of products, we are a community of product creators, product managers, engineers, designers, and founders. We are a Slack-based community where we have around 6K members. We have a dedicated channel for students where they can ask, explore, and network with their peers. For students, we have several initiatives like internship stories, listens to internship experiences, study groups to study for an internship or solve questions together, mock interviews, etc. You can learn more about these on our website, which is Creators of Products. Okay, so now we are going to start our sessions with Yash. For today's episode, we have Yash Jain with us. Yash is an undergrad student. He was a PM intern at Zeta Suite, which is a fintech startup, and Invideo, a platform for video creators. And one announcement I want to make, we want the session to be very interactive. So please raise your hand and we will give you a mic during the session as well. So please interact during the session. Over to you, Yash.
Hi guys, I'm Yash Jain. I'm right now in my final year of undergraduate studies at University of Bombay, and until a couple of months ago, I was working with, as Karan mentioned, Zeta Suite as a product management intern. I was working with them for the payments app for one of India's largest private sector banks. So right now, if you guys are using UPI, so primarily most of you guys must be stuck on a Google Pay or a Phone Pay, regardless of having the bank account with some other bank. So our goal there was to ensure that all the account holders of that specific bank would delete all apps and just use the payments app for the bank. Before that, I was working with Invideo. Invideo is a web-based video editor. You can think about it like a Canva for videos. So we had ready-made templates that allowed our users to customize these templates and create quick videos to fit their use cases. So my part to product was fairly unusual, and I would say it's like a fate and very coincidental. So till my second year, I was primarily working in finance, and I also joined Invideo as a product analyst intern. So my job there was supposed to be crunching numbers, coming up with insights to help with the product managers. But by fate, what happened was the full-time product analyst asked me to just speak with the product managers and get to know what kind of insights they really wanted and just get them to know as people and what the job really was and what they expected out of me. So here's when I got my first pitch into product management. I spent about 30 minutes on call with the 3 PMs at Invideo, and they explained to me what product management was, what part of the product funnels they were handling. And luckily, what happened was the only product analyst at that time was pulled into strategy, and I ended up working with the product manager directly. So, and based on after I think the first couple of weeks where I was working only as a product analyst, I started taking up initiative and I started speaking with these PMs more and tried to get my foot in the door for other kinds of work that they might have overflowing. As you might know, working in startups, these people are always overloaded. They always have more on their plate, and they have a tendency to bite off more than they can chew. So there's always be work enough pending just in case you have the initiative to take it on. So I realized my skills were better suited to product management, and given it was a fairly early at startup, I was lucky there. I was able to just switch and take up more responsibility day by day. It was a lot of unsexy work at the beginning as well, but I got in, and as long as I was doing product work, but by the end of my fourth month there, I was able to write a PRD on my own. I was able to run sprints independently, and I was spending about 85% of my bandwidth doing product management. So how I got into Zeta again. So all I would say this actually all product management interns and people trying to get a foot into the door with product management is, if you're not getting the role directly, try to move in via associate roles, analysts, coders, designers, just use any hard skills that you might be able to pick up, and then try to switch to product management at early stage startups. How I got into Zeta was given that I had a fair amount of internship experience at Invideo. I spent about 5 months there. I started connecting with a lot of people at LinkedIn on who are working at startups I admire, working in cultures I admire, and building products I love. So here's where I connected with one of the directors at Zeta who was building a full fresh out new team for the consumer facing product they were building there. And I just reached out to him. He was looking to hire primarily senior leadership roles. These were people with 5, 10, 15 years of product experience. But I reached out to him, and a couple of months later, when they needed an intern, he luckily happened to remember me. And that's where I was called for an interview. I spoke with various directors and VP level people there. And during that process, I got familiarized with the two most popular questions I've come across for all product internships, which are the RCAs and the product case studies, one of which we'll be taking on later as well. So while I was working in Zeta, I worked on the autopay and notifications module for. Also, if anyone has any, does anyone have any questions as of right now? All right, seems like there's none. I think we can go ahead. So while I was working in Zeta, I got familiarized with the fintech industry as well. Went through various compliances. I realized that RBI was also my best friend as well as my worst enemy. Working in fintech, as sexy as it really sounds to a lot of people, is also dealing with a lot of compliances. It's not all fancy product. It is about how you interpret these rules that RBI posts on any one random notification. You deal with risks, compliances, legal, which you might not necessarily get a chance if you're building any other product. So product management actually comes really later. If you're working on fintech, you need to adhere to bank guidelines, you need to adhere to risks and any other legal troubles that you might get into, and try to avoid them as best you can, because obviously the company doesn't want you defrauding a lot of people. So as far as so I think we can move on to talk about landing product internships. I personally, to all of my friends like Rohan, Manan, and a couple of other people in my network as well, everyone who's really reached out to me to get into product full time, my recommendation has been, like I mentioned, pick up an early stage startup who's building a product you like, and really just try to get in via growth, community, operations, analyst roles, or any other roles that require hard skills over product skills, which are primarily soft skills driven by a lot of people management and stuff that you grab on the way. They're not something that can be taught to you directly by a book. You can watch a million product school videos, but what is based on context and something that you will driven by your experience at an organization has to be learned there. So it's much, much easier, especially for students from tier 3 schools, to come in via these opportunities. And getting full-time roles as well, LinkedIn is your best friend. I also think the best opportunities come via inbound. They're not application posts. When you're in an application post, you're competing with every other person who is in the organization as well as outside the organization and has some experience. So it is very difficult to match that context disparity that these guys might have. So you will lose out more often than not on basis of context disparity. So it is best to, you constantly reach out, constantly on the lookout for people who might be hiring. Even if they're hiring senior leadership, associate roles, it's best that you reach out to these people and get to know them, at least have a conversation. It doesn't necessarily have to be a means to an end situation, as long, like Utkarsh mentioned, the importance of building out your own network. These people may not be hiring today, but at some point they might want to grow their organization. And it's best if you're friends with them, if they remember your face, if they remember some conversation you had, and just interacting with content they're putting out there for themselves as well. So it really helps if they remember you. They're very likely to even recommend you or consider you, despite of you maybe messing up an interview question or maybe giving an answer that not necessarily matches their criteria. But they, if just by the fact that they know you, they might be willing to give you a chance or a shot at something which you might not fit the bill for entirely, but still want to do a lot.
Udatta has a question.
Hi. Hi, Udita. If you can just unmute.
Hello, Yash. Hope you are doing fine.
Yeah, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fine. Yeah, one thing I would like to raise is that I already initially I told everyone that I have got some prior experience in marketing. So I'm planning to go into a product marketing role and then internally switch later to a product team. That's what you also mentioned, that go to adjacent roles and try to work with the product managers and then switch into the team. That would be better, because the skills required by the product manager, I guess it is more of a to know the behavior of the users and like how to implement their needs into reality in the form of product.
Correct.
So the problem I'm currently facing is that I have applied to quite a few internships, and to a surprise, I am getting shortlisted on the basis of my marketing experience only. But they, every intern position, they are sharing some assignment with me, and those are generally like I am now getting a idea what the questions expect. Like for example, recently I got an opportunity from Tartan. It's a startup. So they told me that they gave me a situation. First of all, I gave the interview, and there was some situation based question. I did pretty well, like on the basis of my knowledge. So they then gave me a last round of assignment, in which they asked me that if consider a situation where a blogging website like Medium is facing a 20% visitors decline on the website, not on the app but the website, and what's the reason behind this. So I googled it and got to know this is something related to product, since they wanted to check that. But recently I got another assignment where it was related to create a growth pipeline. So that is something I have also shared in the creators of products Slack channel. I got few responses, but that was not satisfactory for me. And I tried some YouTube videos too, but there also I didn't get the idea what is being expected from me. Like they told me what an ideal answer should be, but still I'm not able to find out what I would where to start, and what to mention. I would like you to spot some light.
So you mentioned two questions by what I understand. One is, say, a blogging website like Medium is facing a 20% decrease in growth in views. Is that correct?
Website visits for the last
month. It's facing a 20% decrease in the number of website visits a month. So this would be your RCA question, where they're trying to figure out if you're able to ask the right questions in order to gauge what is the micro root for this problem, and then you will try to be able to solve on that small portion. So we'll be going through a similar root cause analysis later, I think in a couple of minutes or so. And the other thing, creation of a growth pipeline, that is where they probably want you to create possibly a PRD or a small document where you're showing how you would spend the money and how you would spend your efforts to creating a growth pipeline. So root cause analysis are obviously very common. These are both product case studies, and root cause analysis are very common questions you will face across all product internships. I think any assignment will probably be able to be categorized into one of these two categories, so as to speak.
Can I add something to the growth question that I got?
Sure.
Yeah, so basically the company is a edtech startup, early edtech startup, and the the exact question was to create a growth pipeline for their email or Discord messages, like email content and whom to target, like who their users will be.
Got it. So since
something
I
like that.
understand this might be a product marketing internship, so they want to be able to judge what your GTM skills are and what your perspective on an ideal GTM would be like. So they want you to come with a go-to-market strategy, or at least see what your perspective is like for their product, and whether one, either it is aligning or in the same similar direction as to what they're thinking, or is something that they might find exciting. So as long as you are able to give an answer which falls in either of these two buckets, you're good to go, I think, in that direction. So I obviously I'm not expecting you to share what kind of product it is. Say if it is a product that is targeting preschool kids, so they're just trying to look out to figure out if you are able to come up with good solutions which actually where preschool kids are already an audience available to you. Because if you give Instagram ads for preschool kids, it's probably not the right direction.
Okay, it makes sense. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Zeta. Anybody else has a question related to what Yash said? No? Let's go.
Right. Let's go ahead. Let's also, I actually want to spend some time talking about mistakes in an internship as well. And obviously everyone's right here in their first couple of internships, probably in the first couple of years at college as well. Mistakes at an internship might sound like you're in a place where there is no coming back from, but more often than not, there can all, I have made massive, can we say fuck here? I don't know if we can, but yes, I've messed up badly, made a million rookie mistakes as well at Invideo. Just to give you an example, there was once where I was using one version of a PRD, and the entire team was using another version of the PRD, and I was making changes to mine and or getting frustrated why they weren't getting implemented until I obviously realized. So, and along the way, I also came up with a framework of sorts for, and just learnings of what I made on those internships, which I'd actually like to share. One is getting caught is much worse than if you just go in front and tell your product manager or whoever your reporting manager is. Because if you do get caught, the direct implication is that you were trying to hide it, because they will. So it's either you were not able to identify your mistake, which is bad, or you knew the mistake and didn't come up with and try to get it fixed, which is even worse. So either ways, both don't work out for you. And your manager is obviously aware and cognizant of the fact that you're still young, you will have teething problems, and they're not expecting perfection. As long as you identify and own your mistakes before it's too late. I think everyone must have seen the HBO mail that went out to all of their subscribers, and their response is, because they knew who the intern was fairly much better than had they caught that mistake. And as long as you're able to rectify it, go with solutions instead of problems, your manager will obviously appreciate the fact that you acted promptly, showed ownership, and did what was required to clean up, which is a much more important skill than having all the experience to not make that mistake in the first place. The second thing is, don't make a mistake twice. This might apply to workplace and life in general, but like error logs that codes have, be aware of your shortcomings and tiptoe where you are likely to go wrong or have gone wrong earlier, because your manager or whoever is senior or even the team might be able to look past the first one, but after that becomes a pattern, it becomes harder for them. It might come in the way of you actually getting that final job out of the internship. And the last one is, don't laugh it off. Take your mistakes, accept them sincerely. Because this is a mistake that I am particularly have done multiple times, because you always don't necessarily think the impact of your error was incredible, but you think it has negligible impact. But these things, again, these are patterns, they accrue over time, and again, you might be coming in your own way there. again, all of these things said, mistakes are not the end all. There is always coming back from your mistakes. You will, irregardless of however bad it is, until it goes into production, you're probably going to be all right and be able to recover from wherever you are. Utkarsh, do you want us to move to the RCA or do we have time?
Okay, so anybody else, if you have a question at this point, please go ahead. You can talk about, you ask questions about Yash's two internships. Yash, you haven't spoken about the Invideo internship, right?
Yeah, I just want to know if we have time. Otherwise,
we do have time. We are like 20 minutes in. So folks, for everybody over here, we want to close the session by 8 o'clock. So we still have a lot of time, even after the RCA. You can go ahead with your questions. We'll take them up at the end of the session as well.
Got it. So let's actually talk about, so Invideo was my first experience with product. Primarily before that, I had always worked in finance, working with numbers, Excel, modeling, all the boring stuff that you might be able to think of. So while I was at Invideo, I worked on the activation and engagement funnels of the product. There I was working so how we defined activation and engagement were primarily from getting, once the user has signed up, to getting them to export their first video. That is how we defined activation. And engagement was ensuring that the user kept buying our value proposition and kept making videos multiple times. The more the user made videos, the more there was a habit creation there. And obviously we knew that we had a good product as well. Again, one of my most important learnings at Invideo was the importance of writing good copy. This is something that we as product managers or everybody in general might just tend to not pay enough attention to, but the importance of good copy was shown where we were getting 20 queries from our users every week. They were editing the video and wanted to know how they could download it. We tried making the download buttons more prominent, the export buttons more prominent. We thought that we never able to identify where the user was in their journey. So we were all making corrections at other various places. But after we did a few user calls, really spoke with users where they were facing the most problem, what we realized was all we had to do was change the copy of one button in the editor, and the queries went to 0 in the next week. So from 20 queries a week, every week we went to 0 queries. The importance of design, and especially when design causes analysis paralysis. So we had we had around 40,000 templates. Invideo has 40,000 templates today, which the user can choose from to make their own video. The user has 3 ways to get to a certain video. He can go via categories, he can just scroll endlessly, or he can search on templates. As soon as we reduce the rows on our homepage by 50%, our users began to search or go through the intended categories. They were no longer facing an analysis paralysis on the homepage of having to go through a million different rows and look at all 40,000 templates on the homepage. This might work very well with Netflix or YouTube. Obviously, this is a very case by case basis. A YouTube or a Netflix wants you to endlessly scroll. They want you to be captured and they want to show the variety they have. But in productivity tools or in video, for in this case, where they had a very specific end goal, it made much more sense to not give the users so much information right up front. So this is where this helped them as well. The other thing was a lot of my learnings are from a design and tech perspective. It showed me the importance of actually knowing my tech jobs. A lot of people think they don't want to do coding. That's why they want to get into product management, but you'll be solving product and tech questions every day. You need to know what an API is. You need to know what a JSON is to really be able to do the job effectively. I think that's about it from my end. We can move to the RC if nobody has questions.
Yes, if
Wait.
anybody has any question, please raise your hand, or else we could move to the RCA. First, please unmute yourself.
No, I just meant let's go ahead. Yeah, the question.
Okay.
All right. So the question for the RCA was, the Instagram stories are down by about 10% week on week. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes, yes.
So I have a framework for RCAs, which I'm not ashamed to say I have stolen from a product school video that I saw about gaming product managers. Obviously, gaming product managers, given the nature of the product they're building, are I consider to be much more advanced as far as metrics and their understanding goes. So this is a framework that I have adapted from what I learned out of those and several other videos and resources. Obviously, more than happy to share this with all of you guys. The first, and this is the framework I use almost for, and I think is applicable to all RCAs in general. And if you guys know basic algebra, you should be able to follow me through as well. So what I started with was firstly naming my assumptions. They will more often than not give you very vague problem statements. Mine is as vague as Instagram story views are down 10%. They could be number of items added per cart are down by 10%, or the average value of an e-commerce transactions are down, or the average number of views before the people buy a product are up by X%. So it's always better to mention your assumptions upfront, because any assumption you take and do not mention the use, and you consider, there is nothing like an obvious situation here. There are no obviouses in an RCA situation. Hence, I'd recommend just list them down before you begin with. The ones we've taken here are the data sources known to be accurate. There is no app downtime. Hi, Udata, you have a question. Do you want to take it right now, or do we take it after the RCA?
You can go ahead. I will.
All right. There is the changes are not seasonal. There are no, given Instagram is such a giant, there are no regulatory policies for a specific geography. The change is not platform specific for any geography. There are no geopolitics, disasters. Obviously, there's an earthquake. No one's really going to see stories in that country. Any other platform is not started with a similar feature. Is there a problem? It's not cohort specific. It's not platform specific either. And no new permissions have changed. Suddenly, you don't have to pay for Instagram, and there are no changes in the discovery process. So Instagram story views are in, this is how I split it. They are a measure of two primary components: total number of users viewing a story and average number of stories viewed by a user. So how we are doing this is really breaking it down into two multiples at every stage. So if the fewer people are actually viewing a story, or just not enough people are actually putting up a story, so we go down the left branch. So total number of users viewing the story are a direct percentage of the number of users on the platform. If that percentage has changed, obviously these things will climb up and your story views will change. And the total number of users on a platform are a direct addition of the new users it's added that week and any existing users it had earlier. New users are a direct function. New users viewing a story. So either there is the story walkthrough or education has changed. So if the users were earlier being shown where they can view stories or what a story is, and suddenly if you remove that from the initial walkthrough, a user mandatorily goes, your views will change. If the number of installs have changed, then there's just a lot lesser people who have installed Instagram this week as opposed to last, and hence views will change. Obviously, number of installs are a direct. This could be split into its growth pipeline. So if suddenly it stopped its paid marketing pipeline last week, lesser number of people viewing their ads, that goes away. If it stops cross-selling on Instagram, on a Facebook or any of its associate platforms, number of views go. So number of installs then obviously could be split, and number of installs can always be a different metric, especially for product marketing people or anyone in growth. Number of installs could be an RCA within itself. The existing users, so for existing users, placement of stories within the home. So if tomorrow, we are creatures of memory, and muscle memory plays a very important role. So if the placement of stories is suddenly changed, how it was done with search to introduce reels, then suddenly you will have a lot lesser people, at least in the initial days, because they'll face muscle memory issues. Or there is a change in this algorithm for story ordering. Instagram follows a very particular algorithm to ensure that the most relevant stories are upfront, and any changes in those prioritization might change the appeal for a certain cohort within Instagram, and they might not necessarily click on any story icon here. We now move on to the story uploading funnel. So average number of stories viewed by a user. Again, first thing, if you change the algorithm, then the number of stories viewed by the user will decrease because he might not be given relevant recommendations. Number of stories uploaded. Again, this could be an individual, like installs. This could be an individual RCA within itself. Again, for a lot of growth people, this is, or actually product people as well, number of stories uploaded decreasing could be an individual RCA within itself. Number of stories uploaded is a subsection of the number of people who uploaded a story versus the average number of people who stories uploaded per user. Number of people who upload. Actually, I want to go one level deeper in this with you guys, since we have the time. Number of people who upload a story, again, a direct function of the camera app within the Instagram, because that is the most popular. Then you go on and divide it into the various funnels from where a user can upload a story. That might be the top left corner. I assume you guys are familiar with the Instagram app. That might be from the camera within Instagram, or could be the top left corner within the app again. Average number of stories uploaded per user. If you are messing with the funnel for a user to add multiple stories at a time, that could really hamper the number of stories the user is uploading every session. So this is how you break down a larger problem statement into various subcomponents. As you might be doing this in an interview, the product manager or whoever is taking your interview will stop you in between to really ask you questions for why you came up with a certain assumption, or why have you split it in a certain way. And obviously he might just select and take one, and will ask you what changes you could make to the app to solve for this. Say if you go down and say if placement of the stories in the home has changed suddenly, we have decided to change the placement of stories in the home section of Instagram. What would you do to ensure that the numbers are back up for next week? So an RCA can very easily be converted into a product case study where the person interviewing you will pick up any portion within the RCA and ask you to make changes and improve on them. If say the placement of stories within the home section is what he decides to pick, and that has changed, what I would probably go with is I would introduce a walkthrough for any user opening the app for the first 2 times after that change, and let them know where the story section is by highlighting it, and taking them through a basic walkthrough, probably prompting them to upload their first story from the new place. I'd probably increase a few notifications about the same, telling users, stories has changed, this is what's new, and try to just educate them the best way they can to ensure that, again, obviously stories are higher, engagement is better, and the metrics are back again. I think that's it from my side. We can take questions from Udatta and the rest of the group.
I was asking that, is it the ideal way to write a RCA assignment?
So this depends on two ways. This was a live RCA. So this there are two ways these people might do it. This was a live RCA. I did this on the call with the product manager, and this is what works for me. Obviously, I wasn't able to write down a document, so as to speak. On any other cases where they might ask you to take the RCA home, you might be expected to come up with a document and break this down into specific points. So you will be, and obviously you'll be sharing the Google Doc with them, and they might go through the RCA with you at that point of time. But in live interviews, I think you should be able to go through this process. Why I prefer this is, one is give you clarity of thought. You're able to look at everything at once and see how things are breaking down, and portrays the same clarity of thought to the PM as well. So they know what you're looking at and how you're able to break down complex ideas into simpler pieces.
Got it.
Anybody else has a question right now? If not, then I'll go ahead. I have a question. Yeah, okay. Yash, can you please focus on the assumptions?
Sure.
Okay, so I remember, in my personal experience, I've been asked RCA question very few times. Like I would say, I don't know, maybe 3 times. And though I laid out the assumptions, there were so many times when they would say, it's up to you. We are not saying that the changes. Okay, so let's take a particular one. Number 6. Has any other platform started a similar feature? We don't know that. Let's say that we don't have information on that. Or let's say. Okay, so I think the rest we'll have data on the others. So the question that I'm trying to ask is, what if they say, it's up to you, we don't have information on that, what would you do?
So we're taking number 6. Is that, say, let's take the same example. Has any other platform started a similar feature? For, say, Instagram stories, the direct competitor I can think of is Snapchat stories. Exact similar feature, or you can compare TikTok and Reels, either work. They are the exact same feature created in both. So what you have to really look is, one, how is the product different from ours? And the second thing, this then boils down to growth. Are you really encouraging your users to create the same kind of content that they are now creating there?
Okay.
Because today, if suddenly, say, Instagram, when it created Reels, it wasn't doing very specifically, was not putting any ad placements. You would not get a single ad when you were scrolling through Reels, because they wanted that consumer behavior to be ingrained in you, and they wanted it to be as smooth as you want. Whereas if you have, say, an ad after every third TikTok video in your own app, if you are creating friction for the user, at the same time when they have the exact same product somewhere else, are they really going to be motivated to come here? So you will have to look at very specific frictions, and this would boil down, I think, to the primary two. This would be solved by the primary two splits that we have. Is the average number of stories viewed by a user decreased, then we would know that the user is facing some kind of friction that he is not facing elsewhere in a product. Or is the total number of views are going down? If the average number of stories being uploaded is going down, then we know that they are facing some trouble uploading that kind of content, which they're not facing there, or possibly they're getting better reach numbers there via internal algorithm promotions for some kind of content that they're not getting here.
Makes sense. Yeah, thanks for that. Anybody else has a question?
Yeah,
Yeah, sure. So please go
can I
ahead.
ask? Yeah. So I want to ask, so you did this and it was more on a very structured manner to think the problem. What problem I am facing is I have seen I am a thinker, like I think a lot, I'm not able to structure it. So what you did, you structured all the problems here. This might be the problem, this might be the problem. These are your assumptions. For me, what I generally I have worked in 3 to 4 products, created my own products and all. What I have seen, I generally do myself, I have trial and error method. I will do this, then I think, no, this is not solving the problem. I will change it to something else. So I want to know how to improve my this thinking to go to a structured way. So how to go to a structured manner of thinking?
So what I can, in a very specific context to RCS, what I would say is, given you're trying a trial and hit method, say this works, okay, this doesn't work, this works, this doesn't work. So you're doing a lot of iterations before you get to what could be a potential answer. So what to me seems like could be an error is some give it, let's say you tried five, you thought of 5 possible scenarios which were 100% wrong, and then your sixth scenario answered the question 50% or had a 50% made sense to you 50%. You might go with it, but what you don't realize is that the 8th or the 10th assumption you could make would answer the question much better than this 5th or 6th one that you have settled on. And it's very hard because obviously your biases because of your first 5 tries will kick in and make you want to settle, no, this is the cause because it looks 50% right. What I would recommend to move to a structured thing is if you take any complex idea, say stories, views, installs any complex situation, break it down into only 2 portions. Don't try to break it down into 4 portions, 5 portions. Try to break it down into a limited 2 portions and then make subsets within each, so that you're able to find a correct answer which solves the question above 95% significance and gives you an answer. So obviously there are variations of 1-2% which are cyclical or not something that you would be alarmed about. But if they have a greater than 95% significance and they answer your question 95%, that will really, that is it. There is, you don't need to look further because you know you've thought about it in a structured manner. So break it down into 2 things, because everything, I think every metric can be represented as a multiplication or an addition of 2 more specific metrics, which hopefully you guys should be tracking at wherever you guys are working.
Okay, but might be the question idea you have, which you are saying is 98% correct. Might be that is the case you thought, and it might be not the answer. So if I give you some context about this, so I created my own community and like this creators of product, and I at that time completely idealized it and how it will work. But now I face that, yeah, these are some of the loopholes I'm facing, that if my community, because this is a student created community, when the students have exams, they will become inactive, my team will become inactive, and users will uninstall the app or maybe Slack or maybe log out of my community. Now even if I am conducting events, this problem is not solving because they don't get to know about these events, right? Because they have logged out of the community itself. So these kind of problem I have seen, that even whatever you think, there is at some point you will, the idea you have, the assumption you had get wrong, incorrect. There
Yeah.
were some assumptions, so that was I'm thinking.
What I'll do is I just from a I'll try to solve the question you've given me from a structured perspective and show you how I might look at it. Does not necessarily we have to be ideal right now given the time constraint. So we have a student community which is inactive during a certain period of time. Is that a fair
Yeah.
interpretation of the problem statement that you wanted to share?
Yes, the team become inactive during the exam time because the team is all the students only. So the team become inactive, and that's result in the community overall become inactive, and people start walking out of the community.
Got it. So overall engagement within the community is down because of students and exam. So
Yeah.
the first thing I would start by is with the number of messages being sent on the community versus the number of messages sent versus the number of messages viewed on the community. Total views, say on an email or any message, Discord chat, Slack channel, the number of views per on the community versus the number of messages being sent. The number of messages being sent could again then directly be broken down into the number of people sending a message, average number of messages being sent per person. You could then break down into the number of people sending a message into old users and new users. So that would break down into people who had joined the community before this week and the number of people who joined the community then. The number of people who joined the community during the exam could be a direct function of whatever methods of acquisition you have. So if you were placing, say, 3 messages in a WhatsApp group asking the people from the X group to join, are you still posting the same number of messages? And you, again, all of this has to be done in context of the time period that you're looking at. Since it's exam week, YouTube will have a significantly lower, or say Invideo would have a significantly lower number of videos being created on any public holiday. On Christmas, we'd have, and even in regular weeks, we would have a cyclical. People would by default create much more videos Wednesday through Friday rather than Saturday, Sunday, or Monday and Tuesday. It was never expected of us that we were never doing a root cause analysis of why people were not creating enough videos on Monday or Tuesday, and why that it was essentially a curve which went like this. What we looked at were weekly numbers because we knew Monday to Tuesday people were busy working, and Wednesday through Friday was when they were thinking about their brand. Saturday and Sunday they were again going back and spending time with their family. So this is the cyclical nature that we understood, and never, if the numbers went down on a Monday, we were never worried as long as the weekly metrics were in favor. So what you might want to look at is engagement right after the week after exams, and the engagement right before the week, and the general trending direction. So if the general trend for that month was up, or even for that quarter was up as compared to the previous quarter, and then the next quarter looked in the similar direction and the growth rates were adequate, that is how I would work towards and not be too concerned about that.
Okay, yeah, understood. I will think like this.
Like it's not on Christmas Day, you don't find a lot of people playing Call of Duty, and Activision's never worried about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yash, I have a question over here, and I think this goes to Manan as well. Okay, so in these RC questions, the first split that we do, you are, absolutely right. It's always recommended to do only 2 splits. And these, so for example, over here, we have total number of users viewing stories, and the second split is average number of stories viewed by users. Now, these two are mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. This is a very important criteria, because if we take the split which is interdependent, or which does not cover our, I would say, I don't know, 90 or 95% of use case, if not 100%, then that creates a trouble. And we'll go much deeper into analyzing something, but it would be all wrong. And the interviewer may not point to us. What is a good measure to make a good split or the accurate split at this point? What I've been doing is that, and that relates to the second question. What I've been doing is, when they give me this question, I need to know that I've been using the product frequently. So, for example, Instagram story is a product that I understand, and I can comment on how the split would be. But for example, they gave me a product that does not make sense to me. What do I do then? Do I ask them to switch the question? Do I ask them to explain how it works? What do I do?
Manan, do you want to take this one?
Sure.
Okay.
So Utkarsh, from what I understand is what you're trying to say is because this is a familiar product and you are a user of Instagram stories, you're able to create two cohorts such that they are mutually exclusive, right? Collectively inclusive. Am I correct?
Yes.
But you're saying that, let's say somebody gives you, for example, a Snapchat and you're not a active user of Snapchat, you're not able to see what kind of, if you will be able to go through all cohorts or not. Right. So how I think about this is fairly simple, right? So you do a top-down framework approach, right? So you start with stuff like, is the data source accurate, and all of those, and you drill down. So here I don't think so. So there's two things, right? One, is this a live interview or is this a take-home assignment? You have to identify that. So if it's a live interview, then I am pretty sure no interviewer expects you to cover all use cases in all sense. So you can pick up one particular route that you want to go down. So here, right? So here there are two things. There's total number of users viewing stories, and there is average number of stories viewed by a user, right? So you have to. So once you create, so here also, if this was a live interview and I forget to think about, let's say, the average number of stories viewed by a user part to it, I can just go down on the total number of users viewing stories and drill down hard on that. So in a live interview, if you take one cohort and you drill down hard enough, that should be good. And if it's a take-home assignment, then you can obviously use the app, talk to users, and figure it out that way. So what I would do in this case is, if I'm not familiar with the product, whatever basic product sense and understanding I have, basis that I would try to. So I would also clarify with the interviewer that I'm not familiar with this product. Could you give me more context? And this would often lead to two things. Either they would change the question, or they would give more context, right? And if they do give more context, then using basic product sense, you should be able to drill down on one cohort fairly well. So that solves it, right? Because I think from my understanding of RCAs and this frameworks in particular, as long as you're able to classify the major buckets of where things are going wrong, and you're able to cover, let's say, 80 to 85% of cases, right? If not this, then that. If not this, then that, and so on. It should be fine. So you don't have to worry that have I covered all things or not? Because see, in a real life RCA, you are never given 10-20 minutes to come up and see why the funnel is broken, right? So that's not, the interviewer is also aware of that. So they're just trying to see how deep you can go and how broad you can go in that sense. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Manan. Yeah. Thanks for that answer. For others who didn't know, Manan actually did a pilot session for the same internship stories about his internship at Bounce. What was the question we did, Manan, back then? It was a
guesstimate on number of orders Swiggy does in Bangalore, I think.
Acha, okay, guesstimate. So folks, we have that video live on YouTube as well. This video is also going live, and we'll post both of them in stuff. Yeah, over to you, Yash. So that's it, right? So folks, anybody else has a question at this point? We are about 6 minutes, but we can extend if you have some particular questions. No issues with that. So if you have any questions, please go ahead. And you can ask questions on the current stage of your, maybe if you're looking for internships, maybe if you're looking for product roles, or if you have anything related to the session, or if you want to talk to Yash about his internship experience at that took place in Internship. No? Yes, Sanjana, please.
I have a question. So this was a live interview for Yash. So if it was a take-home interview, like would they expect more? Like would they expect to compare this product with another product and explain which is doing better, or how different is it for a take-home case scenario for the same question?
For the same question, if I was actually given a chance to take it home, what I would end up doing would be just actually presenting this in a document and showing slightly deeper levels. So I would expand the average number of stories viewed by a user to another level. So as you can see, this is exactly where I stopped. And then we took a specific case and worked on it. So I would probably extend it to the same level as the total number as I did the left branch, and just present it in a much form of a PRD and recommended solutions as well. So I would just go drill deep down on any one specific point and then show recommended solutions for 2-3 possible scenarios that I might have. So say if like I said, if the number of installs has gone, if I finally drill down on say number of installs has gone down and that's the cause for the stories going down, I'd put in a line called recommended solutions on how I think we should, what directions we should look at and how we can solve this if this is what's gone wrong. I would do that for 2-3 cases and I think that should have been good to go. Obviously, I would still put in this diagram and mention my assumption there.
Thanks, Yash.
Anybody else? Any questions at this point? Not, then I guess that's it. Right? Yash, did we have anything else to talk about?
That's it from my side.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you so much for the session, Yash. Folks, we did have more things to talk about among ourselves. I think the people who didn't get time to speak earlier were Sanjana, Hinal, and Apurva. Yes, so what we are doing right now is we're just doing a networking session. Please feel free to engage, and Manan, you as well, because from by both of your experiences, I think people will have a lot to gain. Okay, I think she left. Sanjana, do you want to share a bit about why you are here, what do you want to learn?
No, Utkarsh had already introduced, but I could go again.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, I had attended few sessions on the Clubhouse app and how product management.
I remember. Sorry for that. Right, I remember now. Right. So, folks, I think we have Yashaswa, Vita, and Sanjana. Arun is already here. So, okay. So, what we are going to do now is we want to continue this over on Slack. So, Udata has already mentioned that he has been actively interviewing. He has some offers. What we want is we want to continue this on Slack and take all the questions that you have, post it on Slack. If you're actively interviewing, post your stories, and we can help you out more. Both Yash and Manan are there on Slack, although I can't promise because they are busy with their time, so I can't promise that. But I, Karan, and Arun are active, and there are like a 5,500 more people active on our Slack where you can ask your questions. The link for joining us is available over here. Are you already a part of the community? Udata, you said you already posted. Yashaswa and Sanjana, are you already a part of us?
Yeah, I'm part of.
Okay, perfect then. Perfect. So we do have a students channel. If you've already taken a look at that, again, go post your questions, and we will do more such sessions in the later weeks as well, and not just limited to product management. We'll see you there. That's all from me. Karan, do you have something to close? Do you have something else?
I just want to thank all of you for attending the session. And if you have any question, as Kash mentioned, you can post them on Slack also. You can post on discussion sections if you want from professionals to answer them. Please feel free to post your questions anywhere on the community. Also, we have initiatives like resume review, where you can upload your resume, and we have a dedicated team which checks your resume and tells you the flaws and give you feedbacks around your resumes. You can also use this initiative for yourself. Also, we have mock interviews. You can also talk about you register for mock interviews on our interview prep channel. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Yash, for joining. And Manan, I did not expect that, so that was a welcome surprise. Thanks both of you, and thanks everybody else for joining in. And good Slack, everyone.
Thanks for doing this.